Well, it's the age-old debate in the caravanning industry. What is the best tow rig to tour Australia in? And it's a question that we've been asking ourselves a lot over the past year while we've been researching, planning, saving, and weighing up all the options for our next tow rig.
That's right, and we are in the Vic High Country at the moment, but in a few days' time, we are making the mad dash back up to Queensland because we've finally made our decision and we have our new tow rig on the way.
Now, if you're anything like us, you would have gone back and forth comparing different tow rigs, juggling the prices, weights, upgrade costs, reliability, tow capacity, and all the nitty-gritty things. Then today's chat might just help you make sense of it all and even might help you make up your own decision.
So in this video, we're walking you through the comparisons we made, the things we considered, and ultimately how we narrowed it down to choose the ultimate tow rig for us.
So let's start with why we're actually selling our old girl behind us here.
It's a reluctant sale, but we initially bought this cruiser because we were just going to do a 1 or 2 year lap of Australia, but then that kind of evolved and it's not so much a trip anymore, it's our lifestyle. We're doing it for the long term. And once we kind of realized that that was our future, our focus turned to, well, how do we future-proof this setup? That's kind of been on our mind the last over a year, I would say.
Yeah.
Looking at what is our next tow rig going to be.
If you're new to the channel, we've been towing a caravan around Australia for the past 3 years, which is a crazy amount of time. And we've been fortunate enough to see a lot of setups, talk to a lot of people, figure out what's, right for us. And we've come up with a bit of a short list for the things that we ideally want in a tow rig. And I'll run through a little list of those right now. So number one, the biggest thing for us would have to be reliability. So this ute behind us here never let us down, never been on the back of a tow truck, touch wood. And it just has not wanted or needed for anything other than just regular maintenance and servicing. It's taken us everywhere that we need to or wanted to go, and we've done it with confidence, and that is a massive consideration for us. We, as we said, we live on the road and we work on the road full time. So if one of these vehicles, like we've got a caravan behind us that you can't see, if one of these vehicles was to let us down, we can't do our job, and ultimately, we can't afford to do that. So reliability is a massive one. We want to tow at least 3.5 tonnes. So our caravan behind us is 3.5 tonne rated caravan. That's a perfect sort of weight for us. We're pretty comfortable in towing that sort of weight. Comfort, that's a big one.
Comfort is something that we don't have at the moment with this setup, and is a compromise that we were willing to have when we bought this setup and we're looking at comfort versus reliability.
These trucks, they're very agricultural, they're military, they're very rugged and robust. They have leaf springs, which doesn't really make for the best ride, especially when we unhitch the caravan. So we've got heavy duty springs to account for the ball weight of the caravan when it goes on the car, which makes the car ride really nicely when the caravan's on, but when the caravan's unhitched, she's a buck and bull. So yeah, comfort's a big one. Practicality, like this thing has worked practically, having a canopy. It's basically like having a garage on the back of your car. At the moment, we've got our bike stored in there. At some points, we've had boats and boat motors stored in there. We've got a bunch of tools and spare parts and paddle boards and all sorts of chainsaws and stuff like that. So it's sort of like our dirty gear storage, but it's very rudimentary in the way that it's designed.
I was going to say that canopy is kind of the bane of my existence at the moment with the way we've got it set out, because we basically don't have it set out really at all. It's really hard to use. So that's definitely something that we want to reconsider, is how do we store all of that gear, all of that dirty gear too, in a new tow rig in a way that's functional and practical and easy to access, because a lot of it I can't even access. Yeah,
that's definitely my sort of department, and it usually looks like a schmozzle in there. So that would be nice to have something that is practical and suited to all different sort of adventures that we might find ourselves on. Another big consideration when choosing a tow vehicle is weight. So we want to have as much weight as we possibly can with our setup. We want to be able to have the vehicle at its max GVM while still towing 3.5 tonne. And at the moment, that's not possible. This rig behind us here has a maximum tow GCM of 6.8 tonnes. So that means the caravan can be 3.4 and the car essentially can be around 3.4. And that's like, we're right on our limits. So we want to have a bit more breathing space while still taking all the things that we want to and being within the limits of our sort of setup. So
that's right, because like you said, like our caravan, we can load it up to 3.5 ton, but at the moment we load it up to about 3.3, 3.4 ton because our ute is at its max, and so that's how much we can load up our caravan to. So it would be nice to be able to have a rig that we can work with those weights a little bit better.
yeah. And the last consideration really is just more power, and that has become very evident to us over our last, say, few months up here in Victoria. A lot of the places that we've travelled over the last 3 years have been, I've noticed, have been very flat, would you say?
Definitely.
And the Victorian high country has been a massive test for this thing. We've been getting places, but we haven't been doing it very fast. So,
but also some places we didn't even attempt. We really wanted to take our caravan up a particular mountain, and we just didn't think our cruiser, we just weren't confident in our cruiser's ability to get up that steep hill and tow our caravan as well. So that's definitely something that we need to consider too.
Bit of extra power, yeah. So that's our considerations: reliability, minimum 3.5 ton of towing, comfort, practicality, good weights, and more power.
So now let's jump into the vehicles that we considered. These are probably the most popular and common tow vehicles that we see on the road and the ones that we could get the most feedback on. So we'll run through each one and the pros and cons of each to kind of give you an understanding of the process that we went through when looking at all these options and narrowing it down to what we eventually chose.
All right, guys, before we get into our list of cars, I just wanted to stop and thank everyone that tunes in for even being a thing. We're talking about building a new car, we're talking about buying a new car, which is crazy. And this week something very exciting happened, didn't it, Patsy?
Yeah, I quit teaching.
Patsy had a job still that was you're on leave from, and this week you made a decision to resign from that job completely. So we are
We're all in, guys, and it's all thanks to you guys. Everyone that watches the videos, buys us a beer, like sends us a nice message. It all means so much, and it allows us to do what we do. It allows me to quit teaching, which I haven't taught in a few years, but I did have that position that I was due back to in a few weeks' time, and I cut the tie. I'm done. We're traveling, we're loving life, we're building our dream rig, and it's all thanks to you guys. So
yeah. Thank you, guys. Cheers, and thanks for the beers. Cheers, Patsy.
Cheers.
First cab off the rank is a very popular tow rig, and that's the 300 series Landcruiser. Obviously, years gone past, there used to be the 200 series with the V8. Now it's the 300 series with the V6. Very, very popular car. A lot of aftermarket support for these vehicles. Anything Toyota, you're going to see a lot of aftermarket support and just making things better for how Australians treat their vehicles, and especially in the caravanning scene. So yeah, the 300 series, it's very comfortable. We've been in a ride in a few of them. They're amazingly comfortable cars, even with higher GVMs and GCMs. I know J-Max do a 4-ton brake towing capacity upgrade for the 300 series, which is massive. Like, being able to tow 4-ton is a big step in the right direction, considering caravans are getting more tech and they're getting a bit heavier. So a few cons that can be considered cons of the 300 series are, if you're buying one to tow, you are going to need to do some pre-rego upgrades and potentially some performance modifications to get it to an acceptable level. There is that pre-rego stuff. They do have somewhat minimal storage, so you know, you've just got the back of the Landcruiser. Keep in mind, we're considering 4 to 5 seats, right? So we're not thinking about taking out this middle row of seats.
I was going to say, that's definitely an option that we see and have spoken to people who've done to allow more storage. But the whole purpose of us buying this vehicle is to be able to have the option of having kids. So we have to keep those seats in there. So you're really just left with the rear
storage area, which is great. You can load that up with cabinetry and a fridge and everything. You're going to have everything you sort of want in there in a drawer, but ultimately that's weight over the rear axle. The rear axle weight's not great straight off the bat, so there is that to consider. Also, if you're using the back of the car for storage, like especially if you want to store a boat motor or something like that, it's out of harm's way. You are going to be storing it in the cabin in which you are driving in. So you're going to be smelling fuels and all those sorts of things, which is really not an ideal scenario.
Ultimately though, when you're looking at it overall, and we spoke before about us like weighing up comfort versus reliability, I think a huge plus of the 300 is that you have both comfort and reliability. So that's a massive win for the 300. That could potentially outweigh those cons. Yeah,
so the 300, if you were to put that up against a direct competitor, it'd have to be the Nissan Y62 Patrol. So there are a few differences, but they are very similar in a lot of ways. The biggest difference would be one's a petrol and one's a diesel. So the Y62, its comfort level, we have ridden in a Y62, awesome. They are very comfortable. They're like big lounge seats. Petrol car, they're cheaper and simpler to service, so that is also probably a pro for those. Cons for the Y62, petrol, from what we found in our travels, it's not really an ideal fuel source to have when you go remote. A lot of these remote communities that we've passed through only sell Opal fuel, which is a really low octane fuel, and you're having to carry, I think one person was carrying 6 jerry cans or 8 jerry cans of 98 octane fuel so they could mix with the Opal fuel. So carrying jerry cans and stuff like that, not ideal. So
and we've experienced that multiple times. We experienced that on the Gary Junction track. We experienced that on the Gibb River Road. Like some service stations didn't have petrol. So it's not just a one-off. It is something that we've seen consistently. A few times. Yeah, in remote areas.
Fuel economy of a Y62 petrol, they'll chew a bit more fuel. I think people would argue that, but you're going to see bigger fuel consumption with a petrol car over a diesel, especially towing the amount of weight that we would tow with it. Again, minimal storage, so same as the 300 series, the storage in the back, the compartment is virtually the same. And so like that's probably those two head to head.
What about budget? What's the budget comparisons between those ones?
Pretty close. I think the Y62, last I checked, was about 100 grand. And the comparative Toyota 300, I think, was about 110. So they're relatively in the same ballpark. There is a bit of a difference there, but yeah, they do say Toyota reliability is also a thing, or may not even be Toyota reliability. It's just that Toyotas generally after sale, and they command a higher price, from the factory. So that's also reflected in the second-hand market. All right, we'll move on down the list. The big American truck. This is a very popular tow solution for a lot of people out there. You see so many of them, especially touring full-time. There's a pretty popular choice. Reason being, I reckon minimal upgrades are required to tow big weights. Like these things come out with 4.5 ton plus GVMs. They can tow 4.5 ton and they do it all day. Like they've got engine braking. There's a lot of pros to be had with the American trucks. They're very comfortable from what I've heard. I haven't ridden in a lot.
We have been in a few.
Oh yeah, we have too. Yeah, quick to forget.
Very comfortable.
As a Toyota man, I'm quick to forget.
But mind you, we will say that things are very comfortable because the baseline is so low for us in this thing. So yeah, all of these options so far are more comfortable than what we've got.
Yeah. So also fuel economy is a pretty big pro for the American trucks. They have got big engines, but when they're towing big weights, their sort of fuel economy is quite on par to things like our Landcruiser, which is crazy to think something that wide, that long, that heavy, towing weight is economical, but they do it, and I've seen it like evidence of that back to back. So yeah, that's the pros for us with the American trucks. The cons list is pretty big though. Initial cost, you're looking, we would only probably consider a 2,500, that 2,500 mark, so 4.5 ton tow. We really wouldn't consider the 1,500 variants because you need GVM upgrades and stuff like that to get them up to par. You may as well just spend the money and get the 2,500 variant. So initial cost there. From my research, the American trucks, they start around $170,000 and go up from there. That's a a baseline. They might even be more expensive at the moment. But for like a Chev 2500, I think you can expect to pay like $180,000 just for the bare vehicle, which is big bickies.
So then you're also having to put on a canopy.
Yeah, if you want to do that.
At the back.
Yep, suspension upgrades.
Yeah.
So there's quite a lot. And American truck things, people reckon Landcruisers are expensive to modify. American trucks are the next level. Reliability is a big question. I know a lot of people would probably argue the reliability standpoint, but we've been around enough to see that they are not the most reliable trucks. I think everyone we know who has an American truck, 2500, 1500, has had multiple months off the road or weeks off the road and have been on the back of a tow truck at some point. So yeah, from our experience, we've seen the reliability and part sourcing be an issue for people that we know who have American trucks. And reliability is a massive one, and having your vehicle on the back of a tow truck is not a day that I sort of want to experience. With the bigger trucks like the 2500s up, you do really need a light truck license. So they're NB2 registered. That's a truck license. It's over 4.5 ton gross vehicle mass, which means, yeah, you need to have a truck license. Yeah, there is that, and it would be more expensive to register and insure.
Because some people that have these trucks don't have that license though. So what makes you need that license?
If you register it as an MB2. So a vehicle like this is NB1, that's under 4,499 kilos. That's an NB1 license. That's just a general car license. But as soon as you go over 4.5 ton GVM, that means that you're then classed as a truck. Yeah, which is more expensive licensing, insuring. So there is that. AdBlue is a big one. That's a diesel additive. Got something to do with the emissions. It's just an extra liquid that you need to carry or account for, especially if you're going remote. Taking AdBlue, I know, it's just another hassle really. Having an additive for emissions would be a pain, and if you run out somewhere and you can't get it, well, you're up the creek.
Does a 300 have AdBlue now too?
Not yet.
Okay.
But I've heard it's coming. So yeah, also a thing to consider with the American trucks is the weight and the width of the vehicle, straight off the bat. They're much wider than, say, a Landcruiser, so that means forward driving tracks and stuff, you're going to get more damage down the sides. Places it's not going to fit. It's just bigger. So parking in car parks and things like that, it would be, I imagine, annoying having the length and the width.
I guess the other thing to consider there is like the type of travel that you're doing, and for us, we do a lot of beach. Like we enjoy a lot of beach camping and that, so we have to consider the heavier our vehicle is, the more likely it is to get bogged, and also the harder it would be to recover.
Absolutely, yeah. A few other cons with the American trucks, quite a long list, but height of canopy. So even just like standing beside the truck, if I stand up against an American truck, I can't even see inside the engine bay, which is pretty scary. So when you go up to the canopy, you need step ladders and things like that just to use your things inside your canopy. So that's a bit of a con. Servicing, repairs, they require bigger workshops, bigger hoists with the width and the height and the weight of the car. And insurance for a rig, say between $200,000 and $300,000 would be, I'd cry, I think, if I saw that bill. So those are all things to consider. Next cab off the rank is the Isuzu truck. So these are very popular for people that want to carry everything, including the kitchen sink, with them on the road.
I think we're particularly seeing these pop up more and more in travelling families.
Yeah.
Because they look at the weights, they often want a bigger van, and they realise that that is the avenue that they have to travel down. And I guess for us, with our next tow rig wanting to be for the purpose of having kids, that's definitely an avenue that we have to look down to.
Yeah, we definitely had to consider this. Weight carrying capacity is massive, as you just said, Patsy. They're solid axles, so they're pretty kick-ass off-road. They've got big 37-inch tyres. Well, you have to sort of put them on, but they're pretty capable off-road, and yeah, they're very, they've got a lot of room. So you can carry it all at once, sort of thing. So there's some pros. Some cons for the American truck. Again, initial like the cost of the truck, they're pretty expensive. They're upwards of $150,000, and if you want to modify them, they go all the way up to probably past $300,000, really the same as an American truck. I think a con is the comfort. I can only sort of base it off my experience driving trucks, is that I have driven a few smaller Isuzu trucks and they're not sort of the most comfortable, but in saying that, I've talked to people that own these trucks and they say, oh, their comfort's not really an issue for them. So they do need like quite a fair bit of upgrades for touring. Reliability, that's they're probably, I would say I've seen them to be more reliable than American trucks.
Yeah, they're probably in that in-between range, hey, of being in between a Toyota and American truck.
Yeah.
The Isuzus kind of fit in that middle ground.
For sure. Again, with the Isuzu truck, an NB2 license is required, so light truck license. The weight and the width of the vehicle, so they're probably less maneuverable than an American truck, and probably, just the height of it. Like, would you take that into you wouldn't even be able to take that into an underground car park, like, whereas we can still sneak things like this into underground car parks. So they're just so massive. If you go to, say, Melbourne for the weekend, where are you going to park your truck? It's definitely something that needs to be taken into consideration. Again, same as the American truck, servicing and repairs require bigger workshops, bigger hoists to account for the weight and the width, and the insurance also, same as the American trucks. Insurance for a $200,000, $300,000 rig, quite a lot.
So I guess with those last few, it probably has sounded like there's a lot more cons than pros, but also it's important to consider that the pros, which are the weight capacity, is like such a massive pro that could potentially outweigh so many of those cons.
And it does for a lot of people. There is a reason why the American trucks and Isuzus are such a popular choice for traveling families.
The weight thing just has to become a priority.
Yeah. All right, moving our way down the list, we have the good old 79 series dual cab. We would only really consider a V8 option, although they are getting very hard or almost impossible to source. So it'd be close. Like, come September, we've heard that they're completely stopping. So this would be scratched off the list come September 2025. So the pros of the 79 series dual cab V8, they're reliable. Definitely, we've experienced that. They're tried and tested. So they've been around since, I think, the 90s. So they've been around for ages. There's been minimal changes in that time. So it just goes to show what a proven, capable rig the 79 is. They're very narrow, so that is a massive plus when you're going on four-wheel drive tracks. You can sneak in different places. We get ours take ours into the shops, easy to reverse into car parks and things like that. So they're a nice little compact package. Solid axle, same as the Isuzu truck. They kick ass off-road. With these things, basically anything you want to dream, you can do. The aftermarket support, pretty much same as the 300 series, if not more. It's endless. You can do so much with the aftermarket side of things. There is a big spare part network as well in Australia for the 79 series. I did a quick Google, and apparently there's more than 150,000 V8 cruisers getting around in Australia. So even second-hand parts or wrecker parts, they're a very popular vehicle, Cons of the 79 series, like we touched on before, the leaf spring comfort of the cruiser, not very great. So she's a pretty bumpy ride. That can be sort of offset with coil upgrades and things like that, but if you're buying one off the factory floor, it's going to come with leaf springs. So the initial cost for what you get is not the best. Like, you need to do a fair bit of modification to get it up to a pretty good spec, They're not very powerful either out of the gate off the factory floor. They are very popular. It's like a very popular thing to tune them, and you can get 2 or 3 times the amount of power out of a simple tune with these things. So the power thing can be addressed. I know we talked about it before. This thing doesn't have a tune and it's pretty sluggish, so we could address that. But they are coming to the end of their lifespan. These V8s have been canned. So come September, like I said before, they're not going to be available to get, and they're pretty hard, if not impossible, to get at the moment. So unless you get a second-hand one.
And the other thing is budget. So a stock V8 79 series Landcruiser you can buy for around $90,000.
Yep.
Obviously, a lot of upgrades required, but I don't know, when you compare that to like the American truck where the initial outlay is $170,000 or $180,000.
Yeah.
And then upgrades on top of that.
It becomes quite
That's
a
massive,
cost-effective solution. So yeah, that's the 79 series. And last but not least is something that's come onto the scene very recently.
This was a bit of a spanner in the works.
And I know this word has been overused in this sort of space, but the Ford Super Duty, I think, will probably be a game changer in the towing scene. So it's I think it's based off a Ford F-150, or it's based off a Ford Ranger sort of thing, but it's got a 4.5 ton GVM, and it's also got 4.5 ton brake towing capacity. Now you can't tow 4.5 ton while having your vehicle at 4.5 ton with the Ford Super Duty, because it's got an 8 ton gross combination mass, but out of the box, those sorts of towing figures are unheard of for the smaller packaged dual cab utes. So that's an awesome thing. It's going to be released in 2026. So it's pretty exciting to see where that sort of leads the Australian market. There's big pros in the weights and the size of that car. So yeah, the Ford Super Duty, I think it will be very popular when it gets released, but at this point in time, it's not released, and we still don't know the pricing of that vehicle. So that will have a massive impact on where that sort of sits within this list that we've created.
And I guess as well, with it being the first, what would you call it? Like
the first of its kind.
The first of its kind.
Yeah.
There's like no testing, or there's so many unknowns, and I think it has so much potential. But do we want to be part of the guinea pig run?
Yeah. Initial adopters always are the ones that wear the teething problems. So not sure if that's really what we want to do. But yeah, very excited about the Ford Super Duty.
Okay, so with our pros and cons list in mind for each of those popular tow vehicles, keeping in mind too that obviously like each person's pros and cons list is going to be different, because we all value different things, and that was literally our table that we wrote, that we just shared with you.
Yeah.
But we completely acknowledge that everyone's table or working document is going to be different. But basically we looked at that, and then we had lots of chats eliminating and narrowing down our choices. So right off the back, what did we eliminate?
We eliminated the American trucks and the Isuzu trucks just for their sheer size, weight and cost. Like that was 3 big ones. We could just go, okay, well, we've done our travels with this size vehicle with these weights. We're pretty comfortable. Like we do need a little bit more breathing space, but we don't need to be carrying, you know, all the stuff that comes with a 10-ton truck, you know. But also just the initial cost of like the American trucks and the Isuzu trucks. When you start talking $200,000-$300,000, it gets pretty scary, and that's not really an investment that we are willing to make at this stage in our lives. So yeah, there is that. And also the reliability of them. Like the fact that we can just go and steer our nose to the Gary Junction on a whim with a setup like this and do it comfortably and reliably, just sort of highlighted the fact that we didn't really need the big rig to do it.
Okay, what else did we eliminate?
Well, we had to eliminate the Super Duty because it's not here, we don't know the cost of it, and we can't wait till 2026. So
yeah, as you can tell, we're big on the reliability factor, so
yeah,
that was a bit of a
so yeah, with that being said, we are left with the 79, the 300 and the Patrol. And I think we sort of touched on it with the Patrol. Pros and cons is having a petrol vehicle is not sort of a path that we want to run down. So we can cross off the Y62 Patrol, even though it's a very popular tow rig, and I can see a lot of benefit for that, big weights and stuff like that. But yeah, just having petrol is a bit of a deal breaker for us. So yeah, surprise, surprise, Patsy, we're left with the 79 series and the 300 series.
And so I guess you could say we kind of came to that decision a while ago.
Yeah, but it was good to write it out and work through it and see it all on paper.
Yeah, but I was going to say, like, that decision, by writing it out, we could come to pretty easily. And also from our experience talking with all the different owners of these types of vehicles, we were like, yep, the 79 or the 300 is the right way to go for us. However, deciding between the 79 and the 300 has been an absolute nightmare. I swear we have changed our minds about 50 times over the last year. Even like the amount of people that speak to us and they're like, oh, so what are you looking at? And we say, oh yeah, we're looking at the 79 now. And then it's like the next time they're like, oh, we're looking at the 300 now. And they're like, the last time you said the 79. Like,
yeah, we've given a lot of people bum steers and apologise for that. It's been definitely a journey to get to where we are. But I can confidently say, in the 12 months that we've been weighing up these decisions, I feel like we've definitely made the right decision for us, hey?
Yeah.
Other than putting all your thoughts and like sort of setting your wish list out in a document and having a table and working out the pros and cons and breaking it down for yourself, that's all well and good, but you need to also have a budget to stick to. And we set a budget and we don't want to go over that. That's probably one of the biggest considerations that everyone would make, hey, for choosing a tow vehicle.
What we basically did was like we had a spreadsheet, a running document of our Dream 79 series build and our Dream 300 series build. So that was a really good way to lay it all out and compare budgets. Obviously, the 79 has its pros and cons and the 300 has its pros and cons, but the budget is a big factor too.
And at some point, you're going to have to compromise on a few things as well. So.
Yeah, like for both of them, we have reliability. Obviously, the 300 is way more comfortable, but also more expensive.
Yeah.
The 79 series is cheaper, but also and less comfortable, but then probably better for storage. So like we were going back and forth between which way we want to go.
Yeah. So yeah, other than the budget, like probably the biggest factor or the second biggest factor that plays a role in your decision is the human element, right? Like it's how you feel about these different rigs, and you can look at it all on paper as much as you want, but ultimately your decision will vary massively from person to person based on that human element, the emotional element.
It's the emotional element. It's like, what rig have you dreamed of since you were a kid? That's more so like for I didn't really have a dream rig, but you know, like all of that comes into play. It's like everybody's different. We all have our own preference of different campsites we like the most, different style, different things that we enjoy doing. It's exactly the same with a car as well. We're all going to have different personal, emotional attachments to different types of vehicles. I think that's what sparks so much passion when people are talking about this topic as well.
Absolutely.
And debating the best tow like vehicles, because when you look at it on paper, you could clearly see maybe you could clearly see one that's the best, but then you're not factoring in your emotional human element too, and that's a really big thing to consider.
You've got to feel it. You've got to love it. Yeah, it's massive. So that's just all that is our 2 cents drawn on from all the different experiences we've had, talking to people, seeing real life experience in this traveling world. We've been around the country a few times, so I feel like we've been very fortunate to be in this position and see things from a lot of different perspectives and angles. So yeah, we've made up our mind, guys, and we're getting very close to showing it all off. But
literally in the next episode, because as I said at the start, we are heading up to Queensland in a few days' time to pick it up. So we promise you we will show you that in the next episode.
Yep.
Now would be a good time to subscribe if you haven't already, so that you can see that as soon as it comes out. But yeah, what a relief to finally have this decision made.
Yeah, absolutely. We've gone all out on it. We've invested massively in our channel and in our careers, and we just love doing what we're doing. So thanks for the support, and thanks for tuning in as always. We'll see you in the next one.
Bye.